Hello, I'm Jean Pete, and I welcome you back to our show, Better Living. Better Living is brought to you by the Homestead Hope Foundation and is sponsored by Homestead Hospice, where commitment to education and premier hospice care helps patients and families through life's most important journey. Thank you for joining me again today for Better Living. Today, I am pleased to bring you Officer John Allen, who is with the Alpharetta Department of Public Safety ACE Unit. I recently became the victim of internet fraud and was lucky enough not to have my identity stolen to a point where it was financially devastating. But it got me seriously thinking about protecting myself against identity theft, among other things. So today, we are here to talk about all things related to your safety. And Officer Allen is going to not just talk about identity theft, but we're going to talk about how to prevent you from being a victim of a scam, computer safety, residential safety, for instance, falls, fire safety, general safety tips, medication abuse, and driving safely. So whether it be physical or financial, please join me in welcoming Officer Allen to our show today. Officer Allen, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
This is his first time on the radio, so
yes.
We'll have to get very excited and bear with Officer Allen through a little bit of nerves in the beginning, probably, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in this unit of the force?
Yep. So I joined Alpharetta Police Department back in 2007 when I got home from Iraq. I got lucky enough to get a job with Alpharetta Police. And I worked on patrol for about 6.5 years, responding to calls, went to a couple of elder calls throughout those 6.5 years on patrol. Nothing was too detrimental, which was good. Couple thefts, a couple identity thefts, which happens all over the place. But I got to the point where I wanted to actually prevent this stuff from happening. Rather than being a reactive police force, let's be proactive and try and keep this stuff from happening before it even happens. So with the ACE unit, we're Alpharetta Community of Excellence. We go out and we actually inform the public on how to keep themselves from becoming victims of crimes, whether it be your car getting broken into or your identity getting stolen. And with Department of Public Safety, what is neat about this is we have police and fire under one director, Director Gary George. So we have police and fire working together with everything. So I'm not just bringing you police safety and safety from crimes, but also like fire safety and fall safety and stuff like that.
Right. This is the umbrella is safety.
Right,
we will spend
right.
some time talking about identity theft because it's not all about Jeannie Pete, but I just went through this and I want to share my experiences and educate the community about how to protect themselves against identity theft. But especially in the older adults, there are so many other things that we have to get out and educate about regarding safety.
Yes.
One of my biggest being in the healthcare industry is falls. But I love that you've got here fire, driving, general safety tips. So looking so forward to this whole show and all of these components.
Yes, me as well.
Thank you so much. So let's start with... So you do lunch and learns and you go out and you talk to communities and homeowners associations and communities. Yes. That's wonderful. And we're talking to Officer Allen today, who is here from the Alpharetta Department of Public Safety. We're on, Officer Allen, we're on in Atlanta, Phoenix, New Orleans, Gulf Coast. So even though we have you here representing the city of Alpharetta in Georgia, everything we're going to talk about today is going to be important and pertain to you no matter what community you live in. There are Officer Allens all over the place. So you can contact your local Department of Public Safety and find out who in your area could come out and talk to you.
Yes, I would encourage everybody to go out and at least try and find out who you can talk to if you have a problem that does arise, whether it be identity theft or you're being abused.
Elder abuse, yeah, that's so important. Okay, so where do we start? What do you want to talk about first?
Well, I wanted to talk in general about elder abuse.
Okay.
Some people don't know what elder abuse is. It's kind of a blanket statement, but there are so many different components of elder abuse. So I'm just going to run down a list of the type of elder abuse that is common throughout the entire world, not just here, but everywhere. There's physical abuse, and that can be physical pain, slapping, bruising, restraining by holding someone down with, tying to a bed. Luckily, I've never had to see this, but it does happen, and there are reports of this all over the country. Sexual abuse, which is any kind of non-consensual sexual contact. And that is not okay for anybody. But and also neglect, exploitation, where someone's taking your money and you don't even know it. So someone needs to be looking after your finances to ensure that does not happen if you're not able to yourself. Emotional abuse, someone yelling at you every day is not okay. And there are ways you can get this to stop, or if you are a family member, how you can recognize the signs that this might be going on. And then there's abandonment, people just up and leaving an elder. It happens. And once again, I've never had to see this. And then self-neglect, where, we have elders that aren't taking care of themselves because they're at a point where they don't care to take care of themselves. They're not capable of it. So as a family member of an elder, you need to be able to recognize these signs to ensure they are able to live a healthy and happy life.
So what are some of those signs?
So some of the signs, they're not necessarily indicate abuse, but some some could tell signs.
Look further, don't let it go.
Right.
Let the red flag come up and be more aware and diligent and more present, maybe.
Right.
To dig deeper.
Right.
Okay.
So if you're seeing bruises, pressure marks, broken bones, abrasions or burns, those are all indications of physical abuse. Unexplained withdrawal from normal activities. So if they like to go play bridge every Wednesday and then stop, there's probably something going on there, and something that you might want to investigate even further. Sudden changes in financial situations. Maybe they used to go to lunch all the time, and now I can't afford to go to lunch. Well, what has changed in your financial status? Has someone been tampering with your accounts, or have you lost all your credit due to identity theft or something like that? If they're belittling you or a loved one or someone that they normally wouldn't talk to like that, it's a sign that something's going on. And these are all pretty blanket. Everybody knows their family member or someone that they're close to a lot better. And they should be able to see the signs of something going on if they're not acting like they normally do.
Or, and it even could be progression of disease. So
Right.
Either way, even if abuse isn't there, if they're withdrawing, if they're acting differently, if they're more belligerent, something's going on.
Right.
So regardless of abuse, we all really need to not just say, oh, they're fine. We like to live in denial. I like to live in denial. It's a much more comfortable place. I don't like to think that my 15-year-old's going to be driving a car in 9 months. But it's going to happen. We can't help it. And so just being aware, getting yourself out of denial, and getting more present to find out and get to the bottom of it.
Right.
So that we can all
Right.
live better. Hence our radio show, Better Living.
Yes.
Okay, great. So those are some signs and symptoms. And I like what you said about withdrawal, because that is a key sign. And it may be nothing more than they're depressed.
Right.
They're aging, something hit them, or they had a loss of a loved one, and it's the 6-month mark or the year mark or something else triggered it. Either way, that's not normal. We have to live for as long as we can live and breathe. Right. And if we're withdrawing and not participating, I believe that's just going to precipitate a quicker death. You have to be involved. You have to be connected. And so even at the very least, if all they're doing is withdrawing, don't let that go either.
Right. Right.
Okay, great. Okay, so that's a lot of the signs of physical, sexual, even neglect. If they're being neglected,
Right.
I guess that would happen too. They
Right.
would withdraw.
And that's not always done by a caretaker. It could be done by a family member, or if they're living in a home, it could happen at a home as well. And there have been cases of that. And that's where the ombudsmans, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's where they should come in and should investigate if something's going on, if they're seeing signs of that.
Let me ask you a
home.
question, and this might be a tough question for you. So we'll just get as far as we can get. But, I worked in healthcare for a really long time. Well, not that long. I'm not that old. No, I'm kidding. But it's such a sticky situation because I don't believe we as a nation are giving enough support for this sandwich generation that's trying to take care of kids and trying to take care of elderly parents who are declining and trying to pay the bills and keep everything straight. So sometimes it can get very, to me, cloudy, and I feel sorry and empathetic for the person that might be the one being accused of neglect or abandonment or,
Right.
It
It is tough to make it these days, especially like you're saying, having an elder parent that possibly lives by themselves And having kids, you're trying to get to school and soccer and baseball and ballet, everything else going on in your life, on top of making a living for your family to help provide.
Right. So before we get to other areas of abuse, I really just want to know, we take care of a lot of hospice patients at Homestead Hospice as well. I'm not privileged enough to take care of them, but our teams do. And so we come up against a lot of issues because it's difficult. When you're taking care of someone who's very sick, you can't go to work every day. And if you are going to work every day, you're paying a sitter service to come in and take care of your loved one while you're gone, oftentimes with money you don't have.
Right.
And so what we see a lot is one person in a family being not necessarily stuck with. They love their loved one. They want to do what's best for them. But it really falls on one person in the family. And so if mom or dad is real sick or bedbound and needs medications all the time, they're doing whatever they can to try to bring some money in and take care of mom or whatever. And they can't afford to send them to an assisted living facility because they don't have the money. And maybe mom and dad don't qualify for Medicaid because no one told them to get their affairs in order before they ended up moving in with daughter. And it's just so trying, okay? But on the flip side, these people have a right to live without abuse.
Absolutely.
But when there's no money there, what do? What do we, I mean, I really want to know the hard facts. You could be slapped with an abuse, why can't I come up
like
with
an abuse
charge?
Right.
Lord.
Well,
I am getting old.
I believe with that, I think if you're making a conscious effort to care for your parent or your elder sibling or whatever the case may be, I think if you are trying, then you're trying. Mm-hmm. And everybody can do only what they can do. Mm-hmm. I can't ask you to go out and spend $1 million if you don't have $1 million to spend. Mm-hmm. But
like,
I
for
think
instance,
making a conscious effort.
Mom sells her house. You move her in with you. You buy a new house. You're using her money to pay for the house, okay? Because you're taking care of her in your home, working from home, cutting your salary. Her money is being used to pay the bills. Well, now let's just say she needs to be placed in a nursing home. Well, you can't afford that and the house you just bought to take care of her at home. But you didn't know that when you brought her home. I see this all the time.
Right.
But you're going to get slapped with probably financial abuse or exploitation because mom is no longer safe in the home. You're not capable of taking care of her. So what are some things we can do to help folks maybe in that situation right now? Do you know of other resources that they can pull in or who they can talk to? Or
I would definitely talk to the Department of Health Services from where you live and get with a senior support specialist. I'm not sure of their official titles at all these Department of Human Resources places or Human Services places. But definitely try and get resources. There are resources out there for everything now. Yeah,
you never know. You've got to reach out for help. Don't try to think that you're alone.
Right. There's always an organization will help you. And if not, try and start one up. I know we're saying you don't have any time to do anything, but try and collect the resources to make sure that this can happen.
You know, I love that. And I don't think there's enough of that going on. And what I mean by that is like people in like situations. Used to be when we had single working, okay, I could get on this soapbox too, but when we had single parent working families, moms would all band together. Hey, I want to go into the grocery store. Can you keep the kids for a couple of hours? Well, now with two parents working all the time, there's nobody there to give you that support that you need. So I love the idea of, hey, there's got to be other people taking care of loved ones by themselves. And if we can get 6 of y'all together in the same place, do some kind of rotations, hey, can you pop over or whatever, what a help that is. You know, I'll cook your meals if you can help me do this, whatever.
Right. And with saying meals, with the neglect part, Meals on Wheels is an option in most places that I know of.
Absolutely.
That's a very good resource that some people don't even tap into.
And they don't even know that it's free.
Right.
And sometimes it's very minimal.
But there's also Seniors Helping Seniors, different organizations. I know in Alpharetta, there is an organization called Seniors Helping Seniors. I'm not sure if it's a business, but my stepfather actually worked for them for a short time just to help out. So he's going and fixing stuff over at seniors' houses or sitting with someone while their loved one has to go out to the grocery store.
That's wonderful.
So there are services out there and businesses out there that may or may not be for profit that you can look into.
That's wonderful. Okay, so we talked about, just to recap this before we go on to the next subject, elder abuse in general. And elder abuse is anything, including physical restraints could be considered a physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect. You could think you're doing the right thing, but you may be neglectful because you just can't possibly do it all. And you need to reach out for help because you're still being neglectful,
Right.
whether it's your fault or not.
Right. Just get the help.
Get the help. Exploitation, emotional abuse, abandonment. I think emotional abuse goes on a whole lot more than we know. Abandonment and self-neglect. Okay, so we've talked about physical abuse. Do you want to move on to identity theft? Do you want to go to residential safety?
Let's go to identity theft.
Okay.
I did a speech at a assisted living and independent living facility, and I brought up, hide your social security card. Don't take it out of your wallet or don't take it out of your room. But everybody says, well, when I go to the doctor, I have to have it because that's my only proof that this is me. The social is how they get through the medical system. It's through the social security card, and they want proof that this is them, and their Medicare card has their social on it. It's tough to tell someone to protect their social when they have to use it every time they go to the doctor. But you can keep your identity from being stolen by watching your mail. Get a free credit report every year. It's free. And make sure there's no fraudulent charges on there. You can have a loved one look at it, or make sure that if you are a loved one, make sure that your elder family member is getting that done every year. Also, with scams go into identity theft as well.
Let's talk about the definition of identity
Okay.
theft first. It's unauthorized use, well, only because I wrote down the definition, so I really want to share it today.
Right.
No, I'm kidding.
Absolutely.
But it's unauthorized use or attempted use of an existing account, unauthorized or attempted use of personal information to open an account, or the misuse of personal information for any fraudulent purpose. About covers it.
Right.
So someone is using you and your information to benefit themselves in
Right.
some way, shape, or form.
Right.
Okay. And there's different forms of identity theft. So like Officer Allen was mentioning, Social Security card. If there's one number to remember in your head, remember your Social Security number and hide those cards. Try not to take those out. Keep those in a safe place, in a lockbox in your home.
Right.
Because in addition to all the other problems we have with identity theft, I read an alarming statistic this morning in preparation of this show. And it was something like, here it is. Often it's the people closest to you that are the perpetrators of the identity theft. 32% of victims discovered it was a family member or a relative that was responsible. That's so sad.
That's scary. It's very sad.
Okay, so other than protect your Social Security card, what are some other tips to help prevent identity theft?
If you get a bank card or open up a new credit card with us in the mail, shred it. If you're not trying to get a credit card, shred it. So we call it junk mail. It's what it is, but it's also an application that someone can open up because now they have your address. They could make something up and potentially get your social right.
Shoot, you know how many times I rip those up and throw them in the trash?
Right. And that's a good way to protect yourself.
Lord.
And let all your friends know.
And you can get a shredder
Right.
at Staples for anywhere from $25 to $70.
Right.
It's well worth it.
Right. With old credit cards, cut them up. Through shredders now, you can put a credit card in, and you can shred that. If you have an old credit card that you shut down or are no longer using.
Lord, and it's on the rise, folks. So
Yes.
a shredder is, I'll tell you, as we opened the show, I mentioned I was recently a victim of identity theft. What happened was I was actually on a work travel assignment in Savannah. So I was away from home, and I got a phone call. I use American Express for a lot of things because I feel like they're more protective of me than other credit cards because they have their own, I don't know, I feel like they're more on top of things than other credit cards. And so I got a phone call while I was out for dinner in Savannah saying, we noticed you used your card to pay for a hotel room in Savannah, but then we also got this 1-800-Flowers. I don't know how they knew it wasn't me, but they just had a charge for $125 from a florist. Is this you? And I said, no, it's not me. I haven't ordered any flowers. So they're circling around me Someone is circling around me trying to take my identity. It was a $125 bill that American Express caught that I didn't get. There was no negative financial impact on me.
Right.
But I will tell you, they are circling around me. And I'm very concerned that I am going to be a victim of a detrimental identity theft. So I went out and pulled my credit report and checked my bank, changed all my passwords, and I actually went so far. I bought a shredder. This is just a month ago, and I joined LifeLock.
I was going to add.
Do you want to talk a little bit about
There
LifeLock?
are different companies like LifeLock. I don't know too much about them, but there are a bunch of different companies that will protect your credit. So anytime someone tries to do anything with your credit, whether it be you, your husband, your daughter, your son, or someone you don't even know, a stranger, they're going to call you and confirm that you are trying to open up this line of credit. So they're actually watching over your Social Security number to make sure nothing happens.
Right.
Which is easy for a company to do and not so easy for you to do because you don't know what someone's trying to do in Michigan or trying to do in California.
Or another country.
Or another country even. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and it did cost me some money. I think it was $265, and I think there's a monthly fee. But to me, that was minimal versus, I mean, I've hired people that are going through years of trying to get their credit cleared because somebody stole their identity, racked up thousands and thousands of dollars in new credit card debt. And with all these phishing schemes on the email, I was stupid enough at this same time to fall for one, which I thought was from, I want to say, Bank of America. Or it might not have been, but a very reputable company that said, we think you're a victim of fraud. Please revalidate, or it seems so real. And I think I'm smart, but I was at work in the middle of a survey. My brain was on 16 things at once. I got the email. I'm rushing through it because I don't want to be a victim of fraud because I'm already worried about the 800 flowers thing, right?
Right.
Then I realized as I hit the send button, wait a minute, you just answered private information about who your first childhood friend was, da-da-da-da-da. Holy cow. Now somebody can really pretend to be you. And so that's when I called LifeLock.
Right.
Do not fall for any emails. Anytime anybody asks you for any personal information, what's the name of your first dog? Where did you live? Who's your first childhood friend? Teacher. Anything that answers those security questions, red flags need to go off in your head. Do not send any emails. Do not answer any of those questions. Pick up the phone and call that establishment with the phone number you know to be real.
Right, exactly.
And ask them. And oftentimes in the email, I was so dumb. I'm so mad at myself. It didn't even come to my email address. It came to like Jean AOL 49. I don't even have an email address to that. So look at who the send to is as well.
Right.
This is just my personal story, but man, did I learn an expensive lesson because I just spent $265 for LifeLock, plus I'm paying a monthly fee. So not to take over, you are the guest, but I had to share because I think it's important. And so I just want to, we never have enough time, but I just want to make sure that y'all know that abuse is out there, whether it be physical, emotional, sexual, financial, identity theft, and you have to be an advocate for yourself. And if you are, like me, in a sandwich generation, taking care of children, and luckily I'm not so much taking care of my parents yet, but life is busy. And you've got to be on top of this because it's too detrimental, and be there for your parents. We have to take a quick break, but I'll be right back with Officer Allen. We're going to talk a lot more about identity theft, computer safety. We haven't even gotten to driving safety and residential safety, so stay with me. Hello, I'm Jean Pete, and I welcome you back to our show, Better Living. Better Living is brought to you by the Homestead Hope Foundation and is sponsored by Homestead Hospice, where commitment to education and premier hospice care helps patients and families through life's most important journey. Thanks for staying with us today. I'm Jean Pete, and I'm still here with Officer Allen. And today we're talking about, just to remind you, all things having to do with your safety, whether that's physical, sexual, neglect, exploitation, emotional, or self-neglect, any form of elder abuse. We also talked in the first part of the show about identity theft, and I told my story about how they're circling around me, and so far so good, but Officer Allen shared with us some tips on preventing identity theft to the best of your ability, and those included, why don't you recap for me some ways that we can help prevent identity theft from occurring?
So when you get a bank statement in the mail, if you don't need that paper copy, shred it. If you're able to get electronic copy, I would say get an electronic copy of your bank statements. If you get a credit card application in the mail, throw it in the shredder. And protect your Social Security card. Don't keep it in your wallet. Keep it in a locked up safe at home, and only take it out when you have to. Same with your Medicare card or any kind of medical card that has your Social Security number on it.
And I would even go as far as to say, get a lockbox that only
Right.
you and a trusted person has the combination to.
Right.
Because, as we said in the first half of the show, 32% of identity theft happens from someone you're familiar with or a relative.
And then also the outside companies that can look after your credit for you, like the LifeLocks, and there are other ones out there.
Yeah, and I would encourage you to, if you feel they're circling around you, or if you have inadvertently, like me, responded to a phishing email, and if you don't know what that is, it's a fake email from a trusted institution where you think you're responding to your trusted institution, i.e. your bank, your phone company.
You can always
anywhere.
Pick up the phone and
Do
call
not.
that company that
Yes.
you know is a trusted number for that company and say, I just got this email. What do you want me to do? Should I forward it on to you to make sure it's safe? And sometimes they will say, yeah, forward it to me because we're onto these guys.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times they'll have their institution at abuse.com or something, and they'll ask you to send it so they can look into it. That's what they asked me to do. But do not provide any personal information in an email. And I know we all know this, but I fell for it. Some of these
Right.
things look so real and genuine and authentic. But if you have done that, I would encourage you to change all your passwords on all your accounts and contact the institution where you fell victim to the phishing scheme, and maybe even take it a step further if you feel you could be very financially damaged by a future identity theft because you gave too much information, like me. And it does cost money, but I'm paying really for peace of mind and protection. There is a company out there, and it's called www.lifelock.com. Also, when I was doing my research this morning, I found another website, and it's AARP Fraud Watch Network. And I don't have the exact URL, but just Google AARP Fraud Watch Network, and it'll come up for you. And it keeps you appraised of all the latest scams by sending you alerts in your email, and it'll provide you more tips on prevention. It'll give you access to lots of other resources, and it'll help you stay informed so you can be protected. Now, I don't think it goes as far as LifeLock, where it's monitoring over 1 million sites a day, electronically, with the computer technology. But it's a great first step, and it's free.
Right.
So
Now,
that's wonderful.
I know there are a lot of older generation that are afraid of the computer. Understandable. Get someone you trust to help you go through these websites or to talk about these websites and tips with you. If you're not able to log on yourself or don't have a computer yourself, find someone that does and try and get these resources.
That's so important. So if you're the son or a daughter or niece or nephew, or if you have an older adult loved one that doesn't have a computer, that isn't savvy with the computer, we just got my mother working on the computer 2 years ago. Please, this is so very important, because whether they are or not, others are.
Right.
And they're not always out there with genuine intentions,
Right.
and positive intentions. So please advocate for your older loved ones, because they need it. And to protect them will also protect you.
Yep.
Okay, so we recapped on our different types of elder abuse. We talked about identity theft. Let's talk about the other ways that folks can be safe.
So there, can I talk about scams real quick?
These scams,
Okay.
yes.
I don't want to pass this up. As we age, we get more and more trusting and we believe everything we hear as we get older. So everything becomes truth.
Why is that? You'd think we'd get older and wiser.
Right.
But
I wish I had that answer. But as we get older, we're going to trust every guy that comes and says, you need to get your gutters cleaned. Or you need to get your windows done because this house was built 10 years ago and your windows are bad. And people are actually falling for these. It's a scam. It's not as bad as it could be. You're getting new windows out of it or your gutters cleaned. But other scams, like through the mail, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Ask someone before you send off your information, hey, I could win $1 million through this giveaway. Ask a trusted loved one if this is something you should do before you make that decision and send off your information.
You know, it all goes to building a trusted network.
Right.
And we're falling away from that in our society because everybody is so dang busy.
Right.
But I have a great handyman. I try to share it with everybody I know. Right. He doesn't overprice. He's very fair. I want people to make money. If they're doing a service for me, I expect them to make some money. That's only fair of us as consumers. But you get so... greed is just everywhere. Right. And then my pool pump went. I have the most wonderful pool guy. And I would love to share that. When you come across... I'm so blessed that I have this show because I get to bring experts that I trust on to help people be educated and informed. That's what this is all about. This is sponsored by Homestead Hope Foundation, which is all about giving you the power to make your own choices so that you're free to live the life that you want to live. And so building, back to the whole point, building a network, you're giving your loved ones a gift. When you're truly sharing, everyone should have a good handyman. You know, everyone should have a trusted financial advisor. And if you're bringing people business, then you also have the right to say to them, hey, this one, I need you to do this for free for me. I love to network. I'm a queen networker. I was in sales my whole life. It just happens to be something I'm good at. I love meeting people. I love doing for them. So they know that I'm going to give back. But it is so important, especially for your older loved ones, that you have your list of who to call.
Right.
That is trusted, so that when they're getting these things in the mail, they're going to pick up the phone and call you, hey, what do you think about this? And they're not making decisions on their own.
Right.
And that they can say, no, I don't need that because I can call so-and-so my handy guy.
Right.
I got that gutter thing, by the way.
And another scam is people calling on the telephone saying, if you don't send me $10 or you don't send me $50 to pay for this ticket you got while you were driving, then we're going to come and I'm going to arrest you. And that's actually been going on. We have documented reports of that all over the state, all over the country. So people are actually getting phone calls saying, you need to wire me money to this account. And if you don't, they're going to come and arrest you.
Yeah, I didn't have that one, but I did hear of one where they called a grandfather and said, your grandson was in an accident and he needs this, I need money.
Right.
I'm following him to the hospital. I mean, ridiculousness.
Right.
And this man freaked out. Luckily, he picked up the phone and called his dad. But other people would be afraid.
Right.
And do it. And they're on the way to the hospital. It's urgent matter. Don't.
Right.
Don't do it.
Right.
Nothing is that urgent that you can't look into the validity of it.
Exactly. Yep.
Really. And it's so sad it's come to that. When you think a loved one could die if you don't pay money, it's just awful. People are awful.
Right.
So, but these telephone scams are scams.
Right.
And you need to know about it.
Make sure you're talking to someone that you trust, someone that you know, if you're going to do anything, any kind of monetary business over the phone.
What other latest scams are out there? Did we get most of them?
I think we covered a good bit of the ones that I've heard of and that I've possibly seen.
But you're now getting, I got a flyer in the mailbox. Funny that you said that about the gutter. I don't know that it was the gutter, but it might have been.
Right.
It also might have been, I forget exactly what it was, but it was something like, yours were put in your home more than 8 years ago. They don't meet code and could detrimentally affect you from poisonous gases or whatever.
Right.
So I'm looking at them thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to go and get those done.
Right.
And that's not, check. Again,
Right.
That's why you need a good handyman.
Exactly.
Everybody should have a good, trusted handyman, period.
Yep.
So don't just get something in the mail, call and pay for it. That's a scam. And that's abuse.
Right. Yeah, it is. Real quick on safety. I know we don't have too much time, but I want to make sure we talk about a couple of safety things. I'm going to do some general home safety tips, starting with lock your windows and lock your doors. You'd be very surprised. Nowadays, you have to lock your windows and doors, no matter where you live. I don't care if you live in a gated community or not. You need to lock your doors. You need to lock your windows. And don't let people come into your house that you do not know. I know these door-to-door salesmen sometimes can be kind of pushy and say, no, I need to come in to talk to you about this, but don't let anybody in your home that you do not know and you do not trust.
And don't answer the door.
Right. You don't have to answer the door. Nothing says you have to answer the door.
Really, though, because once you open that door, you feel bad. Everybody, especially women, I hate to say it, but we are raised, be nice. Don't be mean. Be nice. Don't hurt their feelings. And so once you open that door, I get sucked in. You get sucked in. And, you just, they're selling something.
Right. Know your local ordinances on whether or not people are allowed to come door to door and try to sell you things.
And even if there's a repairman at your door, I'm from cable, I'm from the electric company, I'm from wherever. I don't care what they're wearing.
Right.
You talk to them with the door closed.
Exactly.
And get in your house and make the phone call to the company to verify that they are supposed to be there.
Yes, exactly. That's very, very smart to do that.
Folks, it seems logical, but when you're in the situation, you can fall for it. And I hope it may just prompt you to throw that red flag up. No appointment, no entry, period. You make that phone call and you verify before you let anybody in.
Yes. Everybody has to eat. Most people have to cook to eat. We see a lot of fires that start in a kitchen. Whether or not it turns into a fully involved fire or just a little stove fire, it's still very dangerous and can still hurt you and still, destroy your house. So while cooking, don't walk away from the stove. If you have something on the burner, don't walk away from it. It happens, and it happened in an instant. If you're cooking with grease, you need to be mindful of what you're wearing. Make sure you're not putting your clothes into it. Long scarves, your hair, you can burn yourself that way. And I don't want to see it ever happen again. There are ways you can be safe around the kitchen.
Especially with kids.
Right. And
grandkids.
Yeah, kids, grandkids. I mean,
dogs. You could trip over the dog and hit the thing on the stove.
Having a rug in front of the stove, you could very easily trip on that and put yourself into a boiling pot of water.
I always try to use the back burners. Isn't that funny? I do, for that reason.
Right.
Because I feel like if it's on the front burner, it could fall.
Right.
So if you don't need all 4 or all 6, however many you have, put them in the back.
Right. And make it that much easier or that much harder for a child to come up and hit it, or you to possibly bump into it while you're walking by. You can always use your microwave. Microwaves tend to not catch on fire as often as, say, a stove or an oven would. So if it is possible to cook it that way, it might be easier for you to cook it that way as well. You can, punch in, walk away, and then come back to it when you're done, instead of having to stand over the stove for that, 15, 20 minutes to cook it.
And two, on this note, if you have an older loved one who maybe is in early stages of dementia or Alzheimer's, this is the number one thing, because they forget. They'll put on the stove and they'll walk away and they'll forget. There are home delivery meal services that you could pay for, like Schwann's is one, and Fit and Cuisine, Fit and Cuisine. Fit and something cuisine.
Yep.
Fit and Fresh, I think.
There you go. Yep.
But then there's also, like you mentioned during the break, Meals on Wheels. There's ways to make sure your loved ones eat healthily. Whether you're paying for it or you qualify for Meals on Wheels and you can get it for free, there's no need. You can shut that oven off. You can unplug it out of the wall, so that it doesn't work. Right. And, I'm so sorry, it's broken. Let's call in a company that can bring you meals every day. Well worth it versus having your loved one burnt and sent to the hospital for treatment of burns.
With fire safety, real quick, time is about to change. When you change time, you have to change your smoke detector batteries. A lot of us are not able to do it ourselves because it's either too high or we don't have a ladder. Call your local police department, fire department. They might come out and change it for you. I've done it before for people that couldn't do that themselves. Or didn't have someone that could do that. But you have to have it. You need to have it because it's just safe to have a working smoke detector. So make sure you change your batteries when the time changes.
And don't take them out if you're like me and you cook and sometimes set them off.
Right.
Just open your doors and deal with it and leave them on because it's not safe.
And if there is a fire, know your way out. Have an escape route from every room you're in. If you live on the third floor, you need to have a ladder to come out of a window. You can get them for relatively cheap online. Some stores do carry them, some home improvement stores.
The kind that rolls up
Right,
and you
the
can
kind-
keep them in a closet. Yeah.
Right.
And I think they're like $80 for second story and maybe $130 for longer or something
Right.
like that. So, I mean, it's an investment, but I couldn't sleep at night when my kids were babies because I wasn't sure how they were going to get out from the second floor.
Right.
It's well worth it.
It's scary to think about. So make sure you have an escape route from every room in your house. And if there is a fire, know what to do. Know how to call 911. Know a trusted neighbor you can go to. If you have people staying with you, your grandkids, make sure you have a place to meet if there is a fire. And then everyone in the house knows where to go if there is a fire, whether it be the neighbor's mailbox or across the street next to the big tree. Just make sure you know where to go.
And make sure a neighbor has a key.
Right.
One trusted neighbor.
Right.
Again, there's your network. You can't just live alone in a bubble.
Right.
You got to get along with at least one neighbor. But for those reasons, like say you fell, somebody's got to get into your house. Somebody's got to check on you. If there was a fire, if someone did see smoke, if they have to bang the door down, it's going to take a lot longer. If they have a key, they can get in.
Right. Make sure someone knows you're safe. So I'm going to bring up my grandfather real quick. He's 88 years old. He's legally blind and he's legally deaf and lives by himself in Alpharetta. And he has to send an email to myself or my father or my uncle every day, twice a day, so that we know he's okay. I'm fortunate that I have an 88-year-old grandfather that's blind and deaf that can use a computer
Wow.
and write emails and do his own research. He uses a software called Dragon Dictation. So he's able, instead of typing, which he can still do, he can talk into his computer to send out emails. So it's very impressive. But he checks in with one of us every day. And he forwards on the funny joke emails and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
It's great. But there are also companies out there, if you can't see very well, that will magnify your screen so that you're able to read. You can make a 1-inch block a 17-inch letter. It's very neat to see.
That's awesome.
To see my grandfather.
It's empowering. It keeps you independent and it keeps you fulfilled.
Right.
Because you can do things for yourself. I love it.
Right. He loves his independence, and I would never want to take that away from him.
What's it called again? Dragon Dictation?
Dragon Dictation is what he uses to talk, to type.
That's great.
But he can still type, but there's a lot of typos. You know, being
Well,
blind,
heck,
it's kind of...
there's a lot of typos when I type.
Right. Me as well. But there's also systems out there and programs where you can actually see better. It'll magnify the screen so you can actually read if you're not able to see very well. So I don't have the name of that company, but get someone to do the research. If you want to start using computer, do the research.
Yeah, and then also on that same note, as you were talking, I was thinking there are companies out there that put monitors in your home.
Right.
Even if it's just for peace of mind, and it's like $24 a month. But me, as a loved one of an aging parent, if I was worried that they weren't, taking care of themselves, they could just get up and every morning they hit a button.
Right.
Or maybe they get their vitals taken. It depends on how healthy you are or what have you. But it registers, and if that person doesn't register in the morning, then that company will put the call into the loved one to say, hey, we didn't hear from so-and-so. You probably want to go over and check on them.
I was not aware of that. That's That's wonderful. There's also I've listened to some of your shows in the past, and there's the Metal Alerts.
Metalert. Yeah, it's along that line. There's a lot of different companies, and now they're doing that.
Right. You can also use that if there was a fire. If you have a Metal Alert, you can press that. There's a fire in my home. They know everything about you with this Metal Alert company, so they'll be able to dispatch someone out to you if you're not able to get to a phone. And that goes into home safety as well with the Metal Alert. There are other companies out there. If you have a wanderer, they have bracelets out there that can GPS track. I mean, there's so many safety issues that it's just so tough to talk about everything.
You can't possibly talk about everything, and everything does cost some money.
Yes.
But, maybe you qualify for Meals on Wheels because you're homebound.
Right.
And if you knew that, then you could get your loved one Meals on Wheels, and with the money you're saving there,
Right.
you can put it into the home safety monitoring system.
There are also some local agencies around here that will actually come out and change out the batteries on these tracking devices if there's a known wanderer or a known dementia patient that is known to up and leave. There's a sheriff that I know that actually goes out and changes batteries on a monthly basis.
That's awesome.
And he has his set few homes that he goes to every month to change his batteries.
I love our public servants. So just, Officer Allen, thank you for what you do. And I don't think y'all get enough credit. And
Thank
you
you.
certainly don't get enough pay here in Georgia. But thank you for what you do. So we're talking about how to keep you safe. We've talked a lot about identity theft. We've talked a lot about the different types of elder abuse. We're now talking about how you can be safe in your home. We've talked about fire safety ladders on the second floor, home monitoring safety systems, bracelets that help from wandering, and preventing fires, which is a big topic. Use the back burners, if at all possible. And when your loved ones are getting forgetful or get that dementia diagnosis, pull that oven out, unplug it from the wall or whatever. If you're not plugging it in, figure out a way to make it so they can't turn it on, break it. And check into Meals on Wheels or Schwann's Home Delivery or Fit and Fresh, I think is what it's called, cuisine. There's lots of them out there that will home deliver foods pretty reasonably.
Right.
To keep your loved ones safe. It will be well worth the extra dollars in the end.
Right.
So, and then we talked a little bit about medication, and I don't think you talked about medication and driving safety.
I'm talking real quick about driving safety. As we age, we tend to lose our vision. We tend to lose our hearing. We tend to lose our reaction time gets a lot slower. So with that being said, make sure your loved one is able to drive their car safely. And if not, there are other ways to get around. Public transportation, there are companies out there that will come out and pick up your loved one to take them where they need to go. There might be some cost. There are some free transportation methods out there as well. So carpooling. There's a website called roadwiserx.com, ROADWISERX.com. And with that, you can put in what medication you're taking, and you can see what effects that medication can have on your driving, how it can impair you. That's just one really good resource if your loved one is still driving and taking medication, to see if their medication could prohibit them from driving. AAA.com and AARP and all these other different websites have many resources on how to talk to your elder about their driving and if they need to stop driving, and how to talk to them about getting them to stop driving.
That's a great website. While you were talking, I put in my thyroid medication, and it says, didn't find any interactions, you're okay. That is the coolest website, because sometimes you just don't know.
Right.
I mean, with the OxyContins and the morphines and all of that, but some of them aren't as clear. So what a great website. Again, that's roadwiserx.com. And just because you had given me some information, in Georgia, the Georgia Department of Human Services has a great website that can get you to other resources, which is www.aging.dhs, for Department of Human Resources, .georgia.gov. So please get informed, be an advocate for yourself and your older loved ones. Officer Allen, thank you so much for visiting us today. We have run out of time. I hope we got everything in there, and hopefully we'll have you back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm Jean Pete. Have a great week and be safe. I'm Jeannie Pete. Thanks for listening. Have a blessed day and week ahead, and listen here same time next week and every week. Homestead Hope Foundation is your resource for a healthy life. God bless.